I've been learning a lot about animals recently, and my tiny turtle house behind me is an example of that, as well as an encounter that I had recently with a husky. And I actually had a premonition about this encounter maybe a month ago. I was sitting in meditation and I had this vision of a blue-eyed husky come into my mind. And not only was this dog like beautiful to look at and visually pleasing, but I could feel the warmth of her being, the like this joy and this love that exuded from her. And it was such a rewarding experience for me. And then 2 weeks later, I was driving through the complex for my storage unit, and along the fence line was this husky running ahead of me. And my first thought was, that husky's here for you. And my second thought was a bit more practical. Yeah, right. It's probably owned by the person in the car ahead of you. But it turns out that the husky had snuck into the complex. She didn't have a collar or any way of identifying the owner. And so for about 10 days, I hung out with this beautiful husky. She was a puppy, maybe 9-10 months old. And we bonded, and there was a really beautiful experience of just being out in the wild with this animal that she loved running. And she didn't like playing fetch very much, but she liked chasing after things I threw, or like just jumping around and playing with me. And I really needed that experience during that time. And I really did not want to find the owner of this dog. But in conversation with a friend of mine who's also a dog owner, he kind of growled at me and he was like, "How hard have you looked for this dog's owner?" And I admitted that I hadn't really searched that hard. And so after that conversation, I realized that the owner probably loved this dog as much as I did, and that I should work a little harder to find the owner. And so after some searching on Facebook, I found the owner and was able to reconnect her with, I called her Gaia, the owner called her Athena. But I'm sitting here a few days later and just reflecting on the gift of the unexpected, and how chance encounters can just like transform our lives in maybe the simplest way. And also how much of a gift animals are to us. Even the wilder animals can speak to us or touch us in a way if we're open, and if our hearts are willing to receive some kind of communication, some kind of teaching or lesson from them. They have a lot to share, and I think they help, at least this husky specifically helped me feel more human and more connected and more conscious of myself and of the gift of life and of companionship. And there was a moment or a few moments in the beginning where I was wrestling with this like pressure of being the alpha to her, and being like making sure she knew who was boss, and that never really felt very good to me. Like putting her on a leash or on a collar or on a chain tied to a fence, I could feel like she hated it, and because she hated it, I hated it. And I think that like there's some part of her that is wild and needed to be free, and I could relate to that. And so I let her roam, and we developed kind of a bond and a way of communicating that wasn't like me being the dominant, but kind of, there was a back and forth of like letting her have her way, and she, in that permission that I gave her, she often would like submit to me, or like listen to me when I called. Not always, but she had a respect for me because I had respect for her. And I don't know, I think I grew up with this understanding of animals as if they're just kind of like lower class beings to humans and not conscious or not fully conscious. And my experience the last few months is proving to be quite different. And I think a lot of that has to do with how willing we are to be open to a different experience with these creatures that are around us. Even the time that I've spent with bees, there's a sense of them being sentient and being conscious of maybe not the words that I say, but the vibration or the energy that I carry. And there were some hives that I would work, and if I was in a mental state that was just like kind of stressed or angry or just overwhelmed, then the hive would respond to that energy and I would get stung a whole lot more than if I was calm and composed and just present with the hive. There's a lot of talk about like we're in this great extinction event right now, and about all the animals, species of animals that are dying off. And I really, like, the more I reflect on that and reflect on these encounters, the more respect I have for the indigenous Native American worldview of seeing everything, not just animals, but the trees and the rocks, as my relation, a relationship, as a part of the whole, that there is a relationship there of honor and respect and care and consideration that this Western civilized, upper, like, intelligent, sophisticated society completely lacks and is devoid of. And I think we suffer as humans because of that. My experience with the husky was not only like pleasing to me in a way of like just having fun, but there was an emotional connection that helped bring me some level of wholeness and an awareness of myself that I didn't have previously. I can feel a lot of anger when I think about it, and just anger over the injustice of lives lost because of greed and because of ignorance and because of selfishness, and also just because we're stuck in these cycles of consumerism that is creating an economy that is destroying the planet. When we can really just be happy with so much less than what we have.
You having a good run? You having a good run?